Hey,
Hey,
what's up?
how are you?
I'm good. You?
I'm tired as hell, but what else is new?
Oh, I know, right?
You hear me, Lakeena?
Yeah, I got Jason. Yeah, Jason's here too. We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Okay, let's see. Allow. All right, can you guys hear and see me?
Yes, now
We
we
can
can.
see you
Now we
Okay.
can.
All right, let's see. Trying to do this here. Okay. I guess it's the best y'all can see me like this.
What are you in the closet or something?
No, this is the area I've been using all along. So, yep,
Oh, okay. So, how are you, gentlemen?
doing good, doing good.
Pretty good. I know I'm still hyped after that game yesterday. I watched every single bit of that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We definitely got to talk about that. Yeah. I mean, you know what? All the games were actually really good yesterday. Most of them. Most of them, not all of them.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
last one was the only one that I actually got to catch though.
Yeah.
yeah. What did you guys want to start off with, basketball or baseball? Because whichever one we start off this hour, we'll start off the other topic next hour.
Uh, Whatever you guys. I'm game wherever you guys.
Uh, I
Yeah, what do
say
you-
basketball.
Okay, yeah, that works.
All right, hold
Okay.
on. All right, hang on. Here we go. Okay, I'm back. All right, I'm back. No, but my sister just came back. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Well, no, because
Alright.
no, 'cause my sister just came back. She just came back from Springfield, and so.
All right. I am ready to go when you guys are.
All right, who wants to start off?
I will.
You want to do it? Okay.
All right, Jason, bring us in.
All right, I'll give you the signal.
Are we? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Oh, I love that. I love that. After a week gone, I am Jay Pfeiffer. You can follow me at Truth and Reason _ on the Twitter. You can follow the show's Twitter handle at 2NDCSCHI.
All right, you
You
follow
can,
me. You can follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter, at Keena _ McGee on the Instagram.
you can follow yours truly, Sid the Kid, on Twitter and Instagram at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. And you can download this broadcast along with all of our other broadcasts, part of the We Are Rico Radio family, wherever you get your podcast platforms. And we're on iHeartRadio. Download the iHeartRadio app. Type in the search engine box WARR on Anchor. You can get this lovely program along with our other content from We Are Rico Radio as well.
All right, those are the introductions. Again, this is Second City Sports Zoom style, and we got a lot to talk about today. Of course, we're going to start in the NBA, though, where, of course, if you weren't watching, you were probably under a rock somewhere. I'm sure if you follow Twitter or Instagram, though, you saw the reactions afterwards. Of course, I'm going to start with the game of the playoffs so far, a game of the season, of this bubble season so far, anyway, in my opinion. Game 4 between the Dallas Mavericks and the LA Clippers was an instant classic. Of course, the ending was so much better. Luka Doncic with the step back three to end it and win it for the Mavericks. We have a series tied at 2-2, best out of 3 on a neutral court. The question I want to start off, well, I guess I want to get you guys' reaction to the game first, but the question I want to start off with you guys is, are the LA Clippers, which is a lot of people's favorites to actually win the title this year, are they in trouble? Sid, I'll start with you.
I think they are because, of course, starting off yesterday's game, they started off hot, and then Dallas came back, actually led by double digits, and then, of course, the Clippers fought all the way back. But to me, what's troubling about the Clippers is they're inconsistent. I know they used the 8 games in the bubble to get themselves ready for moments like this, but them coming out of the game has been a problem in this series. And I said this a couple weeks ago on this broadcast, on this show, that the Clippers would win this series in 6 because we all knew what Luka Doncic is, and I think he's going to be a better player moving forward. He was going to have these moments. Game 1, Dallas lost, but he had 42 points. Dallas came back and won Game 2. Now, yesterday, let's be honest, Dallas should have won that game in regulation,
Right.
but they were lucky in overtime, and Lou Williams missed a free throw, which essentially would have won it for the Clippers in regulation. But in overtime, Dallas were the better team. And I watched this breakdown on television on Sunday. When Luka Doncic received the ball off the inbounds pass, Kawhi Leonard was supposed to switch and defend him. That didn't happen. Reggie Jackson got caught up defending Luka Doncic, and Doncic just had room to operate. So, but with that being said, so with that being said, I still had the Clippers in 6. I'm sticking with that. They should be able to win these next 2 games to close it out.
Does anybody know where Paul George is? Anybody? Anybody know where he is? Does anybody know?
I mean, I know where he is.
Anybody seen him? I mean, is there like a missing persons, report out?
Yeah, he's on court, but he's MIA in terms of the stat sheet.
Oh my
I
gosh.
got something to say about that, but I want to let you finish, Lakeena.
Okay. Well, okay, cool. Thanks. 10 for 47. These playoffs, so far. I mean, that's not going to do it for you. That's not if you're trying to. Look, I understand that people have the Clippers challenging the Lakers for the Western Conference spot for the NBA Finals, but you can't afford to shoot like that and expect to be right there contention if you're trying to reach a championship. You just can't do it. Look, I give Luka all the credit in the world, and that Mavs team, Seth Curry has been doing very well. Tim Hardaway Jr. has been stepping it up. And they've been shorthanded actually because Porzingis was out last game, and they didn't have Luka for like a lot of that second half in Game 3. But the fact that they've been able to stay with the Clippers, and the fact that they've been able to kind of pull, be right there for most at least 3 of the 4 games, I think just shows you a testament to that team. But when you're up 21 points in the first half going into starting the third quarter, you got to go for a knockout punch. Clippers had a chance to end that series, perhaps maybe put a nail in the coffin. They didn't do it, and unfortunately, you're going to be kicking yourselves. I think everyone's to blame. PG not shooting well. Doc Rivers, he, to his credit though, because he's been doing this a long time now, he's been able to say, it's my fault. I should have, switched the defenses on Luka a little bit later on, so maybe he wouldn't have gotten that shot off. But, we'll see what happens. But, look, I also had Clippers in 6, too, so I'm sticking with that, and I'm sure the Clippers will wake up, and hopefully PG wakes up as well.
Yeah, so, I mean, I full well believe the Clippers are in trouble. I'm not saying they're going to lose the series, but I originally had this in 6 games as well, Lakeena, and I think it's going 7. Especially if you're the Mavericks and you win without Kristaps Porzingis, that to me, at least, I would think would instill a ton of confidence in that team. Not that Luka Doncic needs any more confidence builders. I mean, you guys know how I feel about this guy, Lakeena. I was late on him. I'll admit it every time, but he makes the game look so easy. It's something that I really haven't seen before. Even when LeBron first came into the league, I don't recall him making the game look this easy. And it's just really a testament to his maturity level, and not just his skill level, but his maturity level, in my opinion. I mean, it's a 40-point triple-double. It's not a hollow triple-double, not to say that triple-doubles are hollow, but some of them hold more weight than others, obviously. And, I can't say enough about the resiliency that the Mavericks showed, because, again, like I said, Kristaps Porzingis is a late scratch. You don't know if he's going to be available for Game 5, and you just come out with a mammoth effort. And, you're even getting contributions from Boban Marjanovic, Lakeena, and he's giving you some solid minutes sometimes as a big man. So you're seeing a lot of these guys come together. Obviously, Rick Carlisle is a hell of a coach. He's a champion coach already. I think he has a lot to do with how this series is playing out. And, Sid, you made a great point. Why Kawhi switched off of Luka on that last play, I just don't know. I don't know. But it is what it is, and now we're tied at 2-2. And to get to one of my favorite players that I love to talk about, Mr. Paul George. I know exactly where he is. He's nowhere to be found, guys. And the fact that you kind of seem surprised by this, is making me surprised because he now has a track record of not showing up in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what team he's on. He's starting to get a reputation as a choker here. Like you said, Lakeena, he's 10 for 47, only 9 points in yesterday's game. I think he was 3 for 15 or something like that. That is absolutely unacceptable. Unacceptable if you're supposed to be the Robin to Kawhi Leonard's Batman. And that's what they brought him into the LA Clippers for. But again, the series isn't over. He's got a chance to redeem himself. I think he'll probably have a solid Game 5. But this is his track record now. Going all the way back to the Indiana Pacers. This is his track record, and guys aren't scared of him.
I'll say this, guys. I think the Clippers will close it out as well. But Paul George needs to respond here. The pressure is on him, like you guys have been saying. He's been MIA for the entire series. I want to ask you guys this question. How impressed have you been Steph Curry's brother for the Dallas Mavericks? He's really the energizer along with veteran J.J. Barea for the second year for the Dallas Mavericks.
Go ahead, Lakeena.
Yeah, I think people underestimate how good he is because Steph, of course, gets all the attention, and rightfully so. But Steph is actually not a bad player in his own right. He was actually a pretty good player when he was at Duke for a couple of years, and I think he's been able to. He's in a system where this sort of suits his style. So I'm not surprised by this. Like you said, Jason, JJ, or I think it was used as JJ Barea, veteran presence off the bench. Lord knows I keep mispronouncing his name. That's why I don't say it. But I really like who you said, Jason. I mean, I love his personality. You saw his interview after game 2, and just a fun-loving big teddy bear. So he's really good. And look, I think hopefully this will wake up Paul George up, like you said, Jason. I mean, it was this way when he was at Indiana. He didn't play very well the couple of times when he played for them when they were in the playoffs. So. I think the Clippers will take control of this series. I think this will wake them up, like I said, and I think Clippers fans should not be worried, at least not right now.
Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, like Lakeena said, Clippers fans should be concerned. Yes, worried. No, now if you lose Game 5, obviously the panic button will go through the roof. But we told you guys, if you listen to this program, that the Clippers will be challenged by Dallas. Now, with the Clippers being a veteran team, they have aging veterans, and we said this before, and we'll get to the other LA team later. But for the Clippers, you must take care of business now so you get rest for the later rounds if you were so worried about the Lakers. But right now, you cannot afford that. So you have to take care of business in these next 2 games. I believe they'll do that.
All right, so let's I want to start with the other game, and let's switch conferences here. Let's talk about the Eastern Conference. Another one of my favorite teams, the 76ers. Fell victim to the swoon yesterday. 110-106 on the final there, and the Boston Celtics move on to the next round. And guys, Sydney, I'll start with you on this. Lakeena, I'll start with you on this one, I guess. Let's start with the 76ers side of this thing. Where do you think they go from here?
You gotta think Brett Brown's gonna get the boot, right? It's only a matter of time, not if, but when he gets fired. I mean. This Sixers team has underachieved. This whole trust the process thing has not worked. I mean, once Simmons got hurt and had to leave, that was pretty much it. I mean, Embiid did his thing. Tobias Harris, who actually went through a scary fall, was actually able to come back and actually finish the game, which was insane. But Al Horford, you probably could have done more with him. The bench could have been a little more. Involved, but if you heard Brett Brown's comments like before Game 5, it was sort of like, okay, I'm not gonna go through a wall for this guy. So I just don't see it happening. I mean, there have been rumors that maybe Jay Wright. I mean, we've been hearing those rumors the last 5 or 6 years. I don't see him leaving. He's got a great situation in Villanova where he can control who he gets, he can control everything, and he's in the Big East where yes, I know UConn's back there, so they may give him a challenge. So will Creighton and St. John's and Georgetown and all that, but he'll be right there, and whatever they decide, whenever they do start the college hoop season, they'll be right there in the top 10 preseason ranks. So why leave that situation? But I mean, do both Embiid and Simmons go? Or do one of them leave? I mean, this is sort of the questions that a lot of Sixers fans are going to have to answer have to answer all the questions.
I said this a couple of years ago when the Sixers made it to the playoffs for the first time in 2018 with the core group of Simmons and Embiid. Is Brett Brown the head coach moving forward, assuming that they were going to take the next step to perhaps the Eastern Conference Finals and hopefully the NBA Finals? I really didn't get that feeling at the time, only because, like you mentioned, Lakeena, they were in this trust the process. Every draft pick that they had, high pick in the first round, either they traded away or they.
Yeah, about all the trade, all the sort of the trades that they had to pull off and such.
Yep.
So unfortunately, it really hasn't come to fruition. Go ahead, Jason. I think.
Yeah. I think we lost it. We'll get him right back here. But again, one of my favorite teams in the league, the 76ers. The writing was on the wall after Game 3. Obviously, they were going to get swept. But like you said, Lakeena, Brett Brown is uninspiring as a coach to me. I think he was sort of defeated after that Game 3, sort of collapsed there in the final 2 minutes as well, where they probably could have won and made it a series. But I pretty much believe Brett Brown is gone. I'm surprised they didn't fire him right after. Well, I'm surprised they didn't fire him this morning, like today, as of like right now. It should have been a Black Monday situation that you kind of see in the NFL sometimes. There's no point in sticking to him. Again, they're uninspired. They were pretty much defeated, and it's time to move on. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Brett Brown is a bad coach, right? I think he's an okay coach, but sometimes you reach a pinnacle with a certain group of individuals, and I think he did that with this young team. But outside of that, I think there were a ton of bad moves that were made in the off seasons and previous off seasons, I should say. I thought getting rid of or letting J.J. Redick go was a bad move. I thought they should have did everything they could have to try to keep him. They need shooters. Tobias Harris is nice, but he was inconsistent at best this season. They invested a lot in him. I think the absence of Jimmy Butler was a huge void, one that they weren't willing to admit that they had. And when you couple that with a few underachieving players, and a philosophy that, again, I don't think is reaching the players anymore, you're going to have this type of result. And, you guys know how I feel about Joel Embiid. I don't think he's the star that people want to make him out to be quite yet. He's certainly talented, but I think he's still got some growing up and maturity to do. And for Ben Simmons, I think it's part of the same case. He needs to stay healthy, one. And for goodness sakes, develop a jump shot. If he could develop a jump shot, he would make him and his team that much better. But until those things start happening, you're going to see a lot of disappointing seasons and early exits from the Philadelphia 76ers.
Here's the thing about Joel Embiid, and I'll back you up on that point, Jason. We said this before, actually during the offseason after they lost to Toronto in that second round of last year's Eastern Conference second round. Embiid had to come in great shape, changing his mindset, changing his body. I'm not going to say he's lazy because he's not, but it's like you take your talent for granted, and especially for a big guy like him. Even in today's game, you have to be in an incredible shape, and he just hasn't done that yet. And like you said, he's been injured off and on throughout his whole career. When he's healthy, we see the potential that he has, but he just hasn't able to stay healthy. Now with Ben Simmons, of course, GM Elton Brand, who was a former 76er at one time, he wanted to trade Ben Simmons at around this time last year. Manager told him no. We all know why now, because they gave him that contract extension. But sometimes you have to shake up a roster. I don't know what they can really do at this point. Brett Brown, who should be now an ex-head coach, he was really this close, for those of you that are watching exclusively, but he was real close to losing his job, but he barely got the call back to coach this year. You've seen what happened. I know injuries will be part of the excuse, but this has been ongoing for the last few years. That the Sixers just have not taken that next step yet.
Yeah, and again, I think the league and fans are waiting for them to do that, but I don't think it's going to be with Brett Brown. Kind of sort of spinning it forward, I guess, who do you think would be sort of maybe the next good candidate for the 76ers? Because, again, they are a talented team, but they've certainly underachieved.
I wouldn't be surprised if they tried not to maybe to keep him away from the market. You know, Ime Udoka, that's the name that he's thrown around for the Bulls
Yeah.
job, especially, and others. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to maybe promote from within. You know, just bump up his salary. That way, he will have to go in the open market. Like I said before, I doubt Jay Wright. I'm sure that his name's going to be floated around, but I don't think he's going to go anywhere. Juwan Howard apparently there's another name that's being floated around too. I don't think he'll leave either. I'm sure, although I think down the line, an NBA, you know, coaching the NBA is probably is something he wants to do, but I don't think he's going to do it right now because he feels like he's got like some unfinished business left over in Michigan. So, but yeah, I mean, you still got Kenny Atkinson, you still got David Frisdale. I mean, you still got a lot of guys that are still out there. I mean, I've heard some people say maybe Pop if he decides to retire, maybe he wants to do a new challenge. So, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, you pretty much took the names out of my mouth, Lakeena. Maybe David Fisdale or Tyronn Lue. So the Sixers will have options, but it's going to be a short offseason because we'll get into this later about what the NBA schedule will do for next season. But Philadelphia has to have a philosophy of what kind of roster they're going to have. Now, in fairness to Brett Brown, he had 3 different types of teams via trades and free agency over the last 2 seasons. So he gets it out there, but those expectations of taking the next step to a conference final and to an NBA finals were not met. So for the Philadelphia 76ers front office, what is your philosophy going forward, and what's the roster going to look like? And you can't hire the best head coach until you figure out those two, answer those 2 questions.
Yeah, agreed. And okay, so let's talk about Boston now again because they were the Sweet B team and they looked awfully good this series. I know Jason Tatum struggled in Game 3 a little bit, bounced back in Game 4, but Kemba Walker, I mean, uber impressive, especially in Games 3 and 4. So, guys, what do you think about Boston now that they've swept Philadelphia? I mean, I don't know what you guys' predictions were on this series, but how do you feel about Boston now after the sweep?
That's it.
As I said before, I had Boston in 6. Of course, I didn't expect this to come. But Jason Tatum has been playing out of his mind throughout these playoffs. Kemba Walker is there as well. I predicted on this show that Boston was going to be one of the surprise teams to challenge Milwaukee. Now they got a bit of a lesser opponent. We'll see what they do in the next round. I believe they played Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. If I'm incorrect on that, please let me know. But
yeah, I think it'll be Toronto. Yeah.
Okay, but that's going to be one heck of a series because, as we said before, Toronto is a complete team. Even though they do not have Kawhi anymore, they still play team basketball, and they get in your face in terms of defense. So those 2 teams in their styles is going to be very interesting. But for Boston, who's going to step up scoring-wise outside of Tatum and Kemba Walker? I want to see who's going to step up from their second unit because Toronto has a good second unit as well, and then it's going to be interesting to see how that transpires in that next round.
That Gordon Hayward injury worries me.
Yep.
Because I really think that, especially, you know, I don't know, down the line this could end up hurting Boston, but we'll see. I mean, you know, they didn't really need it against Philly, but we'll see what they do against Toronto. I mean, they were having their own issues. Well, hopefully Kyle Lowry is not too banged up, but I mean, look, I had Boston going far if healthy, so. But like I said, that Gordon Hayward injury scares me. Look, if Walker can do his thing, if Tatum can do his thing, and if the bench can do their thing, then they should be okay. But Toronto, I've been saying this for days. It seems unless someone beats Toronto, they're the team to beat in the East.
Yeah, I mean they're the defending champs, right? You know, they're the champs until they're not anymore, pretty much. This is a really compelling series, and one point you guys both mentioned are the injuries. I feel so bad for Gordon Hayward. You know, he just can't kind of catch a break. And he was playing well, you know, not being the focal point of a team for Boston, just doing all the little things, not necessarily having to score all the time, but just being an overall solid player. And I would love to see these 2 teams at full strength to get a better idea of how this series might play out. Like you said, Lakeena, got to keep an eye on the Kyle Lowry foot injury. But these are teams, right? They're not revolving around one superstar necessarily, but they play great basketball. They share it, and it's not about really one guy. and it's going to be an interesting series. I think it's going to be a long series, but like you said, Lakeena, I really don't know who to give an edge to on this one. To me, this is kind of a toss-up, but both teams are playing really well. But Toronto, you have to be impressed by what they're doing, especially without Kawhi Leonard. But I just hope for a long series. I think it's going to be really, really, really good. And what else can we say about Jason Tatum? I mean, he's really coming into his own in these playoffs, and he has been this whole season. So it's really fun watching him grow and mature as well. All right, let's finish things up out in the West, where there was a showdown to end all showdowns, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. Utah and Denver. I don't think this series is over yet, but Utah pulls out the victory. I think 129-127 to take a 3-1 lead in Game 4. Yeah, you guys know how I feel about Donovan Mitchell. He's one of my favorite players to watch. And he dropped 50 for the second time in this series, having 51 points to help carry the Utah Jazz to this lead. So talk about this game. I guess I'll start with you, Sid. What did you think, and how impressed have you been with Utah and Donovan Mitchell?
First of all, I was cheering for Denver because you know how I feel about Jamal Murray for the last couple of years. But the biggest part of Denver in this series has been rebounding. Of course, you have Jokic and who else wants to decide to rebound the ball because it hasn't been there consistently for Denver. Of course, Rudy Gobert of Utah has been able to do what he wanted to do in the paint all series long. Donovan Mitchell, as you mentioned, dropped 57 in Game 1. He dropped another 50-piece last night. And Jamal Murray finally came through for Denver. But here's the thing. Your secondary scoring outside of Jokic, it wasn't there last night. I like Jeremy Grant, but they have injuries to a couple of key role players as well. And I think that's really affected Denver throughout this series. Can they still win this series? Yes, but they really dealt themselves a 3-1 haul. And last night's game was a perfect opportunity for Denver to win it. Jamal Murray hit a couple big shots down the stretch, but they just couldn't get over that hump in the last few seconds. And if you're a Denver Nuggets fan, you really had to be disappointed. It should be be a 2-2 series right now.
Yeah, I had this series going 7, and now I feel really stupid about that now. But I mean, look, right? Look, I'll admit when I'm wrong. You guys know that. But look, I mean, Donovan Mitchell. I mean, look, we know how amazing he is, and a 50-pointer, 51-point performance. He had Mike Conley Jr. kicking in with 26. That was a big one. Also, Rudy Gobert, double-double as he usually does. Jordan Clarkson, 24 off the bench. I think that's been sort of the key, the fact that they've been able to get other contributors. And like you said, Jason, I mean, this, unlike in Denver where Murray, you got Jokic, who else is going to be the scorer? I mean, the bench was basically nothing. I mean, Michael Porter Jr., Plumlee, I mean, unfortunately, they haven't been sort of, and like you guys said, I mean, they're without a couple of key players as well, role players as well. So that's necessarily not their fault, but unfortunately, this is sort of like, I think they win Game 5, but it's going to be hard for them to win 3 in a row.
Yeah, I originally had this series going 6 games as well. I was picking Utah to win it, though. Again, I had to keep saying it, but you guys know how I feel about Utah and Donovan Mitchell. I think they're really a really, really good team. And I love the fact, the thing that I think makes players great and not just in the NBA, but in sports in general, is are you playing your best basketball when it matters most? I think that's one of the great, the bullet points, the benchmarks of a great player. And we're starting to see that with Donovan Mitchell. It's not his first playoff series, but this guy is coming up huge when his team needs him the most. And I don't want to say he's been underrated since he's been in the league because he's definitely an emerging star. I don't believe that. But I just love the way he's taking his game to the next level. And you made a great point, Sid, when you were talking about Rudy Gobert and rebounding earlier, because I think that's a big, big difference in this series as well. Utah is getting a lot of extra possessions. Not just defensive boards, but obviously offensive boards with their extra possessions as well. And Rudy Gobert has a lot to do with that. I think the re-arrival also of Mike Conley Jr. Has had something to do with that as well. And the guy's a veteran point guard. He's been great in this league for a long time now. Ask the Oklahoma City Thunder that, I mean, not Oklahoma City Thunder, but the Memphis Grizzlies that, you got my teams wrong there. But he's been a great point guard in this league for a long time, and he's starting to show that, getting his chance in the playoffs again.
Sid?
I'll say this for Utah. They have the advantage in this series. Can they close out Denver, which is going to be the big question. We all know that Donovan Mitchell is going to show up, but will the Denver Nuggets team show up? I know technically Denver's the home team in Game 5. It doesn't matter because they're in the bubble, but I want to see if Michael Porter Jr. steps up, if, like you mentioned earlier, Lakeena. And I want to see if they can rebound the ball consistently, because that's been their problem this whole series.
Yeah, where's he been, Sid? I thought, well, especially before the shutdown, he was starting to come into his own as well. I'm talking about Michael Porter Jr. I wasn't really sure how good he would be in the league either, but he was starting to emerge as somewhat that third option, like you talked about when you were going on earlier. But he's really been a disappointment so far in this series.
And also, too, I want to see Paul Millsap. He's been there in the playoffs before. He's been a no-show, so I want to see him step up in that key veteran role in Game 5 if they want to keep their season alive.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, yeah, he's been a no-show, and where's he been? I mean, Murray, Jokic, but they need that third sort of score to kind of balance it out for them, and unfortunately, he hasn't been able to do it. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm hoping this extends, because this should be one series that should be able to extend to 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, I agree. So I think one more topic that I don't know if you guys probably have discussed this within the past week or so. I'm sure you have. But just as a refresher, of course, the Bulls finally fired Jim Boylan as their coach. So Sid and Lakeena, give me your reactions on that, and where do you think the team goes from here? Because we are in Chicago, I guess we got to talk about it, right?
Of course. Of course. I'll rehash what we said a couple of weeks ago on the podcast when the news first came up. I mean, look, there are a lot of names that are being floated around. Udoka, who I just mentioned from the Sixers, Adrian Griffin. His name's being floated around. Kenny Atkinson. I've heard some people even say that maybe Popovich, but I don't really think he wants to go through this. He's in his 70s. I think
he's going to retire.
yeah, he's going to go retire and go whatever it is he's probably going to do. So, I mean, he'll have this. Look, Arturas Karnisovas and also Mark Evans, they'll have their pick of coaches. So, we'll see what direction they decide to go. I think they're going to go for more of a players' new school coach kind of thing, since this is sort of the trend now. So I think he'll have his pick, especially now that they're going to have the top 4. We got to talk about that in a little bit. The Bulls have the number 4 pick for this year's NBA draft. So he'll have his sort of his choices.
And I think I said this too on the last podcast, that the Bulls are going to get a new head coach, a younger coach that can relate to the players and also help with player development, because at the time Thibodeau left there, the player development has been down. So with that being said, with any rebuild, your key stars need to perform, and assuming that everything goes according to plan within 2, 3, 4 years, everybody who's on the roster right now will not be on the roster by the time you're ready to contend for a championship and perhaps compete for the playoffs. So it's important. I hate to say you're going to be like Brett Brown or Kenny Atkinson. You got to get those type of coaches to get them to point A to point B. Now, as I mentioned, when you get from point B to point C in terms of taking the next step, hopefully becoming championship contenders, you'll need a different head coach at that time.
Yeah, you guys know I was probably ecstatic when I heard this news. So it's long overdue. It's long overdue in my opinion. I hope, like you mentioned, also said that they get a coach that can relate to these players. I don't know who that will be yet. I'm honestly not sure if I like Fizdale over necessarily Adrian Griffin, because Adrian Griffin knows this roster. He knows the players. So I would kind of like him. But I'm still shocked that Mark Jackson doesn't have a job. I know I mentioned his name a lot when it comes to coaching vacancies. I don't think he'll come to Chicago, but I mean, a man can dream. So maybe that might come to fruition. I doubt it though. But you made a great point, Sid, and I was going to say this as well. The player development has been way down in this season and previous seasons since Thibodeau left. So whoever the Bulls get, again, I hope he's focused on player development and player communication, because I think you'll see better results that way. Just to put it lightly. So let's talk about this NBA draft lottery now, with the Bulls having their number 4 pick. How do you guys feel about it? I mean, they're picking in the top 10 again for the second, third, fourth time in the year in a row now. This draft is top heavy though, so even coming in at number 4 doesn't guarantee you anything. So Sid, let's start with you. Kind of what was your reaction, and what do you think the Bulls can do with this number 4 pick?
I actually said out loud to anybody who listened. Unfortunately, I did not put this prediction on Twitter, but I said during that day of the draft lottery that the Bulls would get the number 4 pick. And look what happened. They're picking at number 4. But with that being said, they need a young scorer to help with this roster. Me personally, I think that James Wiseman, he only played a couple of games at Memphis before what happened to him. People can Google that for themselves. But they could use a guy inside that can operate and be a threat with the basketball to score offensively. I know you have a few more foreign guys that are available to be selected in this year's draft. I'm sorry, I don't have the list in front of me, but if the Bulls had the opportunity to draft James Wiseman, I would do it, but I don't know if he's going to be there because you obviously have 3 other teams in front of him. So it's going to be tough, but I think the Bulls are in a prime position to pick that prime time player. Me personally, I would like to have James Wiseman if he's there, but I don't know if he's going to be there.
Yeah, they got him going. I think like top 3. I've seen some of the draft boards. I mean, I think AK, like, he actually made a joke saying this will be the highest he's ever had to pick. I think the highest pick that he had when he was at Denver was like 5 or 6. So this will be a first for him as well. I mean, you gotta think it's gonna be based on need, right? I mean, Obi Toppin. I mean, do you need a power forward like that? I mean, a guy that swept all the national honors last year, who we were robbed of seeing in the tournament. I think I've said it before. I felt that Dayton team could have went far, but that's neither here nor there at this point. LaMelo Ball, who's actually been playing very well, but he might go 1 or 2, so I don't know if he's going to be there. Denie Avila from Tel Aviv, I think that's a name that's being floated around too. I mean, he's kind of like that Lauri Markkanen type style, so I don't know, like, would he fit in the Bulls offense? So he'll have it. I think AK will have his pick of players, but best player available, that's what he has said. So we'll see. But then again, he might trade down, so who knows?
Yeah, again, this draft is top heavy. It's outside of those first 2 or 3 picks. It's nothing real, at least for me, and I'm sure a lot of other general managers probably feel this way around the league. Nothing really exciting. But it is a collateral pick. Maybe they could trade down and get something. I don't know. Hopefully they're coming up with creative ways to do that. But they've got, I think the Bulls do anyway, some good young pieces. And if they can get a guy, again, I don't think he'll even be there at 4. But like you said, Sydney, if James Wiseman is there, I think if you pair him with a Lauri Markkanen, a Carter Jr., you've got White at your point guard. I mean, I think you could have something there to build for the future. But again, that's a really, really big if, right? Don't think he'll be there at 4. So maybe they can use that number 4 pick to trade down and get a couple of more valuable pieces. Who knows?
Just looking at what the Bulls' position they're in with the number 4 slot, as you guys mentioned, you'll probably end up having to pick the best player available. The trading that pick, it depends on who's slotted in with all these draft projections and all that. But I think if I had to put some money on it legally, of course, I would say the Bulls would probably just pick the best player available at number 4.
Yeah, like I said, he'll have their pick. I mean, he'll have his pick of who he gets in. Like you said, Jason, they may end up trading down. Who knows? But we'll see. You got game 4 of Bucks and Magic about to tip off as we speak. Milwaukee's up 2-1. They've struggled. Here they are. Some people are saying even here they are again in sort of the early slots. 12:30 game. 12:40 tip off. So where do you guys see that series?
This is your classic NBA TV series, and rightfully so. I did see only 5 minutes of that game on Saturday, which I'm glad I only saw 5 minutes of because I expected Milwaukee to dominate Orlando. Which is exactly what they did. But as I said before, when we did our playoff preview segments a couple weeks ago, Orlando was going to get one game. They got their one game. Now you're seeing who they really are. Even them, missing Mo Bamba and Aaron Gordon, most importantly. If you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you're for real. You're up 2-1 in the series. You should step on your foot on this team like you did on Saturday to take care of business. If this goes beyond 5 games, there's a problem.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that, Sid. If this goes beyond 5 games, it's a problem. I wasn't overly worried or, jumping up and down if that Orlando won game 1. Wasn't, not a big deal to me. Milwaukee seems to be back on track. I am, however, concerned about Chris Middleton. They are going to need him. He's got to start shooting the ball better. He's an all-star caliber player, but he's struggling right now. Hopefully he can get out of his funk. But Giannis is Giannis. So to me, he's enough. And then you got Brook Lopez playing absolutely outstanding basketball right now. So they're more than enough to get past Orlando. But whoever you got coming up in that second round could be tough, and they're going to need Chris Middleton for it.
Yeah, he can get away of taking this series off, but down the line, especially if they're trying to go to the finals, you can't afford to do that. Houston and OKC. Houston, up 2-1. What do you guys think of this series? Do you guys think this can OKC even the series out?
I think that they can. They showed great poise during that second half on Saturday. They caught Houston with their pants hanging down, no pun intended, during the last couple of minutes of the regulation. Chris Paul is showing his veteran leadership once again. Gilgeous-Alexander coming up with big buckets in that game 3. I think I predicted OKC in an upset, so I know Russell Westbrook will still be out for Houston. James Harden, he did not look good in that first half, and so I'm not surprised there. But I think OKC can even it up tonight. And as I said before on this show, it's not going to be easy for Houston. And now with the injury to Westbrook, as I mentioned, it gets even harder. Now, if OKC can tie it up tonight, things will really get interesting for Houston.
Yeah, I kind of think OKC ties it up as well. They've had opportunities. I think actually, except for the game 1, I think that was a blowout. But in games 2 and 3, they definitely had an opportunity in game 2, and obviously they pull it out in game 3. I think they pull it even. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like you said, Sydney, I mean, he's really coming into his own. Really a talented kid. Just the sort of player that I think Chris Paul sort of needs. And he's showing once again why he's one of the best point guards in this league, even at this advanced stage in his career. Again, I think OKC evens it up tonight.
Yeah, I had this going 6, so I'm sticking with it. I think OKC does even it up tonight, but I think that Harden will kind of lead the team, and he'll get back to being the James Harden that we know and love, and they'll end up taking control of the series. Indiana and Miami. Miami could finish it off today. So what do you guys think about that series?
I'm really disappointed in Indiana. I know they showed great fight on Saturday in game 3, coming back for almost from 20 points down at halftime. They showed the great fight, but as I said before this series got started, Miami's more of a balanced team, of course, led by Jimmy Butler. You have role players like rookie Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson, who's really been playing very well in this series. Indiana, they can score the ball with the best of them, but they're not a complete team defensively. They're just not there. You still have great players in Malcolm Brogdon and Miles Turner, but Sabonis, they really miss. I don't know about you guys, but they really miss him. TJ Warren, he hasn't been scoring like he has been during the previous 8 games in the bubble. So troubling for Indiana. Maybe they'll win game 4, but if assuming that they do, I don't see them extending this series past 5 games.
Yeah, I actually think that he closed this thing out, and I'm what you said. I'm really disappointed with the Pacers. Their golden opportunity was in Game 2, but they had a late game collapse as well. They couldn't close it out. They let Miami go with that game, and I think that would have made it a series. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm really disappointed. But you mentioned they don't have Sabonis. Victor Oladipo is not 100%. I don't care what anybody says. He's not 100%. You can see it. He doesn't have the lift on his leg. He doesn't have his legs. He doesn't have his game day legs. And honestly, at this point in his career with the injuries that he's had, I don't know if he can get them back. I don't want to engage in hot takes or hyperbole or anything like that, but he's really had some devastating injuries to his legs, Victor Oladipo has, and I love watching the kid play. But he really needs an off season to get back in shape and hopefully get healthy 100%. Miles Turner, excellent talent, but inconsistent. T.J. Warren, inconsistent. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon has been a godsend. I mean, he's been worth every penny that the Pacers have paid for him. Excuse me, but it's not been enough. Miami is balanced, and they're led by, who I call a dog in this league in Jimmy Butler. And I think you need a dog on your team to be successful. He's not going to score 30 or 40 points every night, Jimmy Butler is. He's capable, but he's not going to do that. But what he's going to do is give you an all-around complete game, and he's an obvious leader for this young Miami Heat team. You can see it throughout the team. They exude his confidence. Duncan Robinson, like you said, Sydney been shooting the lights out. So is Tyler Hero. They've been playing great, even with Kendrick Nunn struggling. So, I'm looking for Miami to close this thing out today.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you guys. I think Miami closed it out. I think Jimmy Butler's on a mission, and I think that it's unfortunate Eric Spoelstra doesn't get the credit that he deserves, because I think he's showing you that he is not just some lackey that LeBron lobbied to get the job. He's showing you that he's a pretty darn good coach. Just gonna leave it there. And last, of course, but certainly not least, you got Lakers and Blazers. Can the Lakers take control of this series? They're up 2-1.
I think Portland ties it up tonight. Damian Lillard, yeah, he looked great early, but you could tell that finger injury on his non-shooting hand is affecting him. But he's a gamer. This is what we expect from your high top paid superstars. The question is, who else is going to step up to help him out? Will it be Melo, although he's not the player that he once was, although he's looked great in spots in this series? CJ McCollum, where are you, buddy? Nurkic, he needs to step it up a little bit more. So, and Gary Trent Jr., I know he was in foul trouble the other night, but who's going to step up to help out Dame Dollar, as the kids call him? So I'm looking for the role players for Portland to step it up tonight if they want to tie up the series at 2. Because what happened in Game 1 was the secondary players stepped up. They took advantage of the Lakers' defensive problems, and they shot the ball well. When they haven't shot the ball well, they've lost. And that's what happened. The Blazers are now down 2-1. On the other side, the Lakers have shot the ball very, very well. You saw that on Saturday. In Game 2, Anthony Davis came out to play and established his presence early, and then led to a blowout win in Game 2. So I want to see how Portland kind of acts with that, with their role players. I want to see who else steps up to help Damian Lillard.
For me, and I hope the series is extended to 6 games. That's where I had it when I first looked at the series between the Trailblazers and the Los Angeles Lakers. I hope it can go to 6 games. I just don't know now with Damian Lillard's finger. You're right, though, Sid. I mean, he's a gamer. He's a tough guy, and I love watching him play. He's one of the more underrated, if not the most underrated player in the league. But he's hot a little bit. And, you made another great point. Who else is going to step up? Can Melo have a big moment? Can he have a good game? Where has CJ McCollum been? He's been inconsistent. He was great in Game 1. He has disappeared in Games 2 and 3. So has Nurkic. They need their complete team. And I think also what will be a big key tonight if LeBron James comes out and he looks like LeBron James early, like he did in Game 3. I think Portland can withstand a Anthony Davis onslaught, if that makes any sense. I don't think they can withstand it if LeBron comes out early and he is assertive and he's dominant like we know he can be. I don't think they'll have an answer for that. So I think that's something to watch out for in Game 4. But, again, I hope you're right, Sydney. I really, really do. I hope the Trailblazers can tie it up, but I just don't think it'll happen. I think the Lakers put a stranglehold on this series.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jason. I think the Lakers are on a mission, like we've been saying. They're gonna take a stranglehold on this series, and I don't. And like you said, if we see the LeBron that we know he can be in the playoffs, they're gonna be tough to beat. And Rondo, we'll see what Rajon Rondo is. I mean, that lower back's been bothering him. We'll see if he plays tonight, so that'll be interesting. Look, no kids. I mean, look, let's remember he just lost his grandmother, who he was very close with. So I got to think that you kind of have to let him slide there. But CJ McCollum, I mean, he kind of he's been disappearing in sort of like as it gets down to the wire in the game. So I think he has to step it up. I think. And look, it might also be fatigue, might play a factor too. I know they've had some days off, so maybe they'll all be refreshed. But I think the Lakers will take control of this series, and I think they'll end up winning it in 5. I think they'll win tonight. I don't think they'll end up clinching it in a couple of days. All right, one more before we go to break. People are making such a big deal about the NBA ratings not being, really good, and I'm like, wait a minute. I actually did some research here. I went back to, I didn't go too far back, but I went back to like the 1979-1980 season. The number one show, as it finishes, was actually 60 Minutes, believe it or not. It averaged about 28 million viewers, and I'm going to do this from memory. And then I think it was MASH. I think it was Three's Company. I might have the order backwards, but I think That's Incredible 2 was up there as well. They had like 25 to 28 million. And then you think of this past season where, everything had to kind of stop because of COVID, seasons were shortened and that kind of thing. Outside of Sunday Night Football, which is number 1, number 2 scripted series, the number 2 show, the number 1 scripted show was NCIS, which is now going to have its 19th season. 18th season, I should say. And that finished up with about 15 million viewers. So you go from 1980 and then like 40 years later you get from like 15. I mean, and then you see that people are cutting the cord and such. I mean, I think people need to kind of like sort of like stop with the hot takes and the hyperbole about, oh, what's this, oh, what's that. It's just so silly. I mean, I what do you guys think before we take a break?
Lakeena dropping jewels. I like that. That's what we do on this show. That's what we do. We back it up with facts, baby. I was listening to a national radio show on Friday. I know I gave you guys that clip. I'm pulling back the curtain a little bit, but let's be honest here. 1980, in terms of the NBA, it was on CBS. Cable television was coming to people's homes back then, but not everybody could afford it. And number 2, the finals and playoffs were on tape delays, so you couldn't get any viewers there. That those games were aired after your late local news. Fast forward to today, like you mentioned, Lakeena. People are cut cording. People are watching the streams via the NBA app or Reddit apps, things along that line. So when those ratings numbers show up, I don't think they're registering how fans are viewing the games. It's not just about the traditional watching it on television anymore. Let's just say if you have work, like sometimes I do with my 9 to 5, you can DVR the games and watch them later when you come home from work. So that changes things right there. So there's plus, just in general, there are many options available if you don't like sports or basketball in particular. So you didn't have that. This was 30, 40 years ago. So there are so many options out there. So I think the powers that be had to cater to an audience of where how they are watching the games. It's not just by traditional television anymore. Some people want to blame it on the political movement, which I don't think that's necessary. NBA ratings have been up and down for the regular season over the past few years anyway, so it has nothing to do with the political climate. So people can miss me with that nonsense. So it's just the way we have so many options now to view our games. And that's all across all of the 4 major sports.
And also all television, too. I mean,
Yes.
network television and cable television, too. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys, I'd only be echoing what you guys said. I mean, a lot of people are cord cutting. There's so many more options these days. And ratings are so 2000. They're so 1990. They're so 1980. Nielsen ratings, I mean, what are those now? I mean, come on now. That is not taken into a factor, again, how people are consuming television and sports in general. So, I mean, I'm not worried about that. You know, we may have some prominent political figures who would point to things like that and to try to make a point for something else. I won't even get into it. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
you know, I'm not worried about that at all. Not in the slightest.
All right, so that's our take on it. So feel free to comment, you know, on through the podcast platforms, you know, to see what you guys think. But like we've been saying, people need to kind of like listen. This is like Jason said. I mean, Nielsen ratings, those are like, you know, 20, 30, or how you probably even say even 10 years ago. It was starting to kind of like so. It's silly, but so we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna talk baseball. Sox get their series, but the Cubs, you know, showed a little bit of fight yesterday.
Also, some desperation, I think.
Yeah, well, that too, and also, you know, we'll try to not to try to get too depressed about Fernando Tatis Jr. still doing his thing. We'll also talk some NFL and fake positive testing. And in college football, they've released their top 25 preseason top 25, which is weird, but we'll get to that. So, Second City Sports News. Well, we could be right after this.
All right, welcome to hour number 2 of Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that more and more. Of course, once again, I am Jay Pfeiffer. You can follow me at Truth and Reason _ on the Twitter. You can follow the show's Twitter handle at 2NDCSCHI.
You follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter, at Keena _ McGee on the Instagram.
You can follow yours truly, Sid the Kid, on Twitter and Instagram at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. Excuse me, that's SIDKID80. You can download this podcast along with our other fabulous programming from We Are Regal Radio, wherever you download your podcast. But you can download the iHeartRadio app. Just type in WARR on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor, and you can access all of our programming, including Second City Sports. And Lakeena, where can they find us on YouTube?
You can follow us on the YouTube channel. Just look up We Are Radio on WARR on Anchor. Make sure you guys subscribe. So we need to bump up those subscribers. So tell your friends, tell everybody. You know, we're right there if you want to see our lovely faces.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into this discussion. Of course, we're going to start things off this hour with some baseball talk. Part 1 of the Crosstown series between the Southsiders, Chicago White Sox, and the Chicago Cubs goes to the White Sox, who are really, really impressive. Yeah.
I know you were. About that.
I know you were. Winners 7 out of their last 8. The Cubs take Game 3 behind another stellar performance from Yu Darvish. I was not surprised by that at all. I predicted that coming into the season, COVID or non-COVID. I thought he was going to have a really, really good year based on his second half of last season. But overall, this is about the White Sox here, guys. Again, 7 of their last 8. They've been setting major league records left and right. Jose Abreu and team-wise hitting the ball out of the ballpark. We pretty much thought this would happen, guys. We've been talking about this for a few seasons now. I'm not sure. Well, for me personally, I think they're a season early. But again, we've also talked about how crazy this season could be and how we could see some sort of unusual things going on in Major League Baseball. But I don't think any of us are really surprised about how good the Sox are doing. But again, for me personally, it's a year before arrival. But listen, they have been great. They're getting great starting pitching, obviously led by Lucas Giolito and Dallas Keuchel. And of course, the offense is just hitting on all cylinders. So, Sid, I'll start with you. I know it's been a couple of weeks since we've talked about the Sox, but they're playing great, man. How you liking what they're doing?
I'm loving what they're doing. I'm not surprised of what they're doing. I'm proud of how they're doing it with the home runs. Let's be honest here. Coming into last weekend series against the Cubs, they beat up on the Tigers, and of course, they beat up on the Kansas City Royals. We said this a couple of weeks ago. You have to beat up on the bad teams, and you have to show up against the good teams. This series was more important for the White Sox than the Cubs. Now, for Sunday's game, did the White Sox had a golden opportunity to sweep the Cubs? Yes, they did, but runners in scoring position has been their problem off and on all year, and it showed its ugly head on Sunday. But with that being said, you're getting great starting pitcher from Lucas Giolito. Dylan Cease, who made one mistake in Sunday's loss, he's been pitching very well. And who else is going to step up on the starting staff? We shall see. Ronaldo Lopez did not look good on Saturday. He did get out a couple of minor jams early, but he didn't look good at all. I'll talk more about his future in a minute. But as far as the offense is concerned, Tim Anderson has looked great ever since he's come back from his injury a couple of weeks ago. Luis Robert, he introduced himself to the north side this weekend in a couple of big home runs. Jose Abreu, we had Janice Scurio from Southside Hitpen, part of Sports Illustrated Now, on our last podcast previewing this series. And I asked her the question, do you think that Jose Abreu will slow down? She said no, because we all thought that coming into the season, Jose Abreu, he's a good player, but he's getting up there in age, and he's not going to have the same numbers as he did last year or previous years. But he's proven everybody wrong. So he's hit 6 home runs during this Crosstown series. So that bat is alive and well. And Yasmani Grandal, it's nice to finally see him come around. He had a couple of big hits as well, along with a couple other home runs. So he's been showing up. So as soon as the Sox can get their whole roster back, hopefully very soon that Nate Madrigal will come back and play second base. Johan Moncada, who missed Friday's game, he showed up at the plate on Saturday. So you have a real balanced team right now with the White Sox. Just hopefully that starting pitcher will come together. Their bullpen, even though they're suffering a couple of injuries right now, they still look good. So I'm really liking what the White Sox are doing right now. Just one other quick thing. They have a light schedule coming up this week, only 2 games at home against Pittsburgh. And I believe Kansas City comes here this coming weekend, and then they go to Minnesota next week. So this is a big stretch coming up for the White Sox again. You have softies in Kansas City and Pittsburgh before you go to Minnesota next week. That's going to be another big series right there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I said on Friday, the White Sox need this series more than the Cubs did. Boy, did they do just that. I mean, look, I think Abreu just hit another home run. I just think he's just that good. And we don't know. Look, he is getting older. We don't know how long he's going to be able to have this kind of power. So you might as well just, enjoy that. Eloy did his thing. Moncada, though, did not look good. That's probably like the one little gripe. I mean, the pitching, that backhand, that rotation, that still worries me a little bit down the line. Mm-hmm. They were able to get out of jams. They had the bases loaded a couple of times, able to get out of there. But, credit to the White Sox. I mean, they were able to kind of, be right there and sort of like put themselves in a good position to get one of those wild card spots. Now, as for the Cubs, I mean, look, the Cubs needed that win. Yu Darvish looked really good. He's been looking really good. People say he could be sort of like the leader in the clubhouse for the NL Cy Young. I don't know if Jared Jeffries, I don't know if he's going to be the new closer, but the spot's up there now. So I think he was able to kind of get out of some jams yesterday too to help, get the win for the Cubs. So those, they have 3 more games left in the last 3 games of the regular season. So that could end up perhaps being maybe some playoff positioning, if you will. So look, I mean, the White Sox fans, they should be very happy. They were able to kind of get the win in the series, but the Cubs sort of got the win when they needed.
Yeah, and the White Sox are looking a lot like the Cubs did 5 years ago. They're looking hungry, they're balanced, and they're just mashing the ball all over the ballpark. I could be wrong. You guys tell me. I mean, you guys have your finger on the pulse on the Sox a little bit better than I do, but I've kind of been saying this. I think if Cease is going to stay consistent, you guys are going to be pretty okay with your starting pitching. I know the back half, like you mentioned, Lakeena, may be worrisome a little bit, but if you got Giolito, Keuchel, and Cease as your 1, 2, and 3 possibly, you guys are going to be pretty good. I tell you that because, listen, I've been watching Dylan Cease and Eloy Jimenez for going back to 2016 now in the Cubs farm system. Those 2 young guys are going to be your faces of your franchise moving forward. Luis Robert hit a ball that I still don't think has landed yet. I've been really impressive about their lineup. Jose Abreu, we've been talking about underrated players in the NBA. Jose Abreu is really one of the underrated players in Major League Baseball. he just doesn't really get the recognition that I think he deserves. I think you guys feel the same way. He has been a staple and stalwart, whether he's been DH or at first base for the White Sox for the better part of this decade. So, again, it's a question to see, can he keep it going? He's up there in age a little bit, but he's bringing that stability to that young lineup that they sorely need. And, I think we're all in agreement the Sox needed this series a little bit more than the Cubs did, but they're struggling. They can't hit the ball to save their life right now. Darvish, again, he had to stop the bleeding, so to speak. And as far as the bullpen goes, David Ross is going to put out there whoever the coin lands on that day, because that's just what the bullpen is right now. We've talked about this going on 3 seasons now. They haven't fixed the bullpen, and they can't hit with runners in scoring position. These are glaring problems that the Cubs have had, going back for a few seasons now. And they got off to such a great start, but now these weaknesses are starting to come to light a little bit more and more. Can they turn it around? It remains to be seen, because I still think they have a talented team, but boy, you just don't like the fact that obviously before Chris Bryant got injured, he was hitting below the Mendoza line. Javi Baez is going back to the 2014 Javi Baez. He's just swinging at everything right now, and it's really concerning.
Going back to Dylan Cease, I noticed the difference between last year and this year, and that's why he has the best record as far as the starting pitching on the White Sox right now. Last year when he came up as a rookie, he was trying to strike everybody out, and he barely got through 5 innings of throwing over 100 pitches. I noticed that this year he's not trying to strike out everybody. He's putting the ball in play and letting the defense do the work for him. He's still getting a few strikeouts here and there, but he's not oversimplifying things. And almost like the Dallas Keuchel approach, Dallas Keuchel, to a lesser extent, he doesn't worry about striking out guys. He just throws the pitch to the batter and lets the defense do the work for him, almost like what Mark Burley brought to the Sox many years ago. So, like you mentioned, Jason, the top 3 of that rotation is solid if they're on and if they get enough help from their offense. Now, the back end of the rotation, Gio Gonzalez, I know he's an aging veteran. I know he picked up the win on Saturday, but I don't know if he's going to be the answer going forward, which leads me to Ronaldo Lopez. Now, what frustrates me about Ronaldo, and you saw it on Saturday, he can start off hot, and if he starts off hot, he has everything going his way. He's good for the rest of the game. But every time he goes into trouble, and you saw this the last couple of years, he tends to let it get to him and let it get into his head and not a factor for the rest of the time he's on the mound.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, down the line. I mean,
You
both
cannot
teams.
have that. He's been here for the last panel, kind of like that moving forward. If he's supposed to be one of your core guys going forward, me personally, after this year, I will put him in the bullpen, build his stock up for him to be a possible trade bait going down the road.
Yeah, I was just gonna say so because he kind of froze for a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I think both these teams have weaknesses, so it'll be interesting to see what both teams decide to do. They both have like easy schedules coming up the next week or two, so the Cubs should be able to kind of like pad their win totals, and the White Sox should be able to stick right there for to be right there in that wild card spots in the AL.
Yeah, one more thing before we move on. And Lakeena, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. And Sid, you can chime in too. I am really, really concerned about John Lester. There is a noticeable dip in velocity. Even from 2 seasons ago, there was a dip in velocity last year. But this year, he is barely touching 90, 91 on the gun. I'm really concerned about him. I know he's coming to the end of his contract. He's got an option coming up after this year. But just, really quick, Lakeena, and again, Sid, if you want to give your thoughts as well, where's your concern meter about John Lester right now?
I mean, unfortunately, we don't have the long schedule so that, he can't right the shift. So if there is a big problem, if it's arm, I don't think it's arm issues. I'm sure it would have came out that it is. I think he just needs to kind of like find his rhythm back again. He is capable of doing that. I mean, I know he's up there in age now, but I think that he needs to get it right and get it right quick because they don't have the time for it. So I think he'll get it together. I'm sure he was not very happy with his start on Friday.
His last 2 starts have been bad.
Yeah, so I'm sure he'll try to work with his mechanics and work with the pitching coaches and sort of try to kind of like see what's wrong, and then maybe perhaps he can right the ship.
I think you may have to put him on an innings limit count or pitching count, but I don't know if you have the time to do that because, as you mentioned, Jason, you cannot trust that bullpen right now for the Chicago Cubs. Craig Kimbrell, he looked okay on Sunday, but he get in the first 2 hours, but he walks the next two guys, almost costing the Cubs the game. Jeffries, who closed the game on Sunday, he looked good, but he left the bases loaded. Thank goodness for the Cubs that he got out of it, but John Lester, you may have to put him on the pitch count, but I don't know if you could pull that up with a savvy veteran like him. So you may just have to ride this out. And hopefully you get enough from your offense so you don't have to go out there 6 or 7 innings.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know how it can get fixed. I mean, I hope it does, quickly because, like you guys both mentioned, we're already halfway through the season at this point. He's only got maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 starts left in this sort of unique season here. So, again, that sort of amps up my concern for him because John Lester is a guy that has obviously in this later stage in his career he's relied on execution of his pitches more so than overpowering the batter, and he's missing spots. And if you couple that with a dip in velocity, you're going to see results of like what you've been seeing the last 2 starts from him. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Any other baseball news or notes that you guys may want to get into?
We didn't mention this, Lakeena, on our last podcast. The Tampa Bay Rays, as I told you, they need to get back on track. They swept the Yankees around this time last week. They took care of Toronto this past weekend. They're first place by, I think, a game over the Yankees. And, of course, the Yankees have been struggling. Of course, a weekend series against the Mets were postponed due to staffers from the Mets catching COVID-19. And also, Oakland's looking good while Houston is struggling. And the Colorado Rockies are now below 500. I was watching that game on Sunday. I actually watched the last 2 games of that series against the Dodgers. And it seems like through recent history, the Rockies can beat the Dodgers when they're in Coors Field, but when they go down to Dodgers Stadium, it's a whole nother ball game. And in the last 2 games of that series this past weekend improved that.
Yeah, the Rays pitching has really stepped up for them. They were able to get that sweep, and they're now in first place by themselves. Remember, though, the Yankees have injury problems. Stan and Judge. I think Judge is supposed to come back, I think, this week sometime. Stan's going to be off for another 2 or 3 weeks, so that's definitely been a hindrance for the Yankees. I think Toronto somehow, I don't know how, but I think they somehow get into the playoff picture.
Yeah.
Because I think that team that's a young, scrappy team, and that team's way too good. Their pitching is sort of still concerns me a little bit, but they've got the hitting, so they'll be right there to get a chance to get that playoff race. Minnesota's still doing their thing. They hit another home run, I think, yesterday. So Oakland's pulling away from the Astros, who've been struggling lately. We'll see if they can get.
Got swept by the Padres.
Yeah. So. Speaking of the Padres, your buddy, Fernando Tatis Jr. said, he's still doing his thing, made a couple of big catches late to kind of, keep up that sweep. The Padres have now won 7 in a row. They might not be able to catch the Dodgers because it looks like the Dodgers are starting to kind of get together themselves. But I think the Padres are saying, hey, you know what? Look at us. Don't ignore us now. So I'm excited for. Look, we're kind of getting to the wire here. We're about halfway through the season, like Jason just mentioned. So this should be interesting. The second half of the season, this sort of crazy sprint season, if you will.
Who's not getting a lot of attention now? Manny Machado. And that's a great thing for him because of the contract he signed before the start of last season. That's another quote-unquote shot at the White Sox right there. Of course, we're better off without him, but I want to get Jason's thoughts on this. Fernando Tatis Jr., as you mentioned, Lakeena, he's having a phenomenal last couple of weeks. I know people want to put him up there as one of the top 2, top 3 players in baseball. And I mentioned this to you, Lakeena, on our last podcast last week. He should be up there as far as NL MVP is concerned, along with Mookie Betts of the Dodgers, who hit another home run in Sunday's game against Colorado. you can't ignore what Tatis Jr. has done. He's the face of that Padres franchise right now. And I want to ask you, Jason, do you think, assuming that San Diego makes the playoffs, do you have Tatis as a serious contender for MVP next to Mookie Betts?
Absolutely, 100%. And I'm gonna humble brag here just a little bit. I mentioned this before talking to you guys, but I had the pleasure watching a few of these young players that are in the MLB now actually getting their shine and starting to mature and coming to their own. I had the pleasure of watching Fernando Tatis Jr. In A-ball a few summers ago, I should say. And again, with him, Eloy Jimenez, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., you could see the talent with these young players. And, you're starting to see it play out on the major league level now. Fernando Tatis Jr., super athletic, long, strong, built for the game of baseball. It's in his DNA, literally. And again, he's absolutely a top MVP candidate, in my opinion. I love watching young teams emerge. We're talking about the San Diego Padres here. We're talking about the Toronto Blue Jays here. I love watching these type of teams. Can they make some noise in these playoffs? I think they have as good a shot as any team does in this sort of unique season. And again, I know the Dodgers look dominant. They've looked dominant the past few off seasons, but you guys know how I feel about the Dodgers. I mean, they've got to win it, and then until they win it, they haven't done anything. So even with Mookie Betts launching the ball out of the ballpark, it looks like Clayton Kershaw is back and healthy and rounding into form. I mean, they're probably going to make the playoffs, no doubt about it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they get taken out by a team like a San Diego Padres, who are playing really well right now.
The way it's set up, though, I think that if they can kind of stay with the Dodgers, I think they'll be right there to kind of get into one of those wild card spots. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see if Tatis can kind of keep this up. I mean, that Padres team is looking like the Padres team that we all thought there would be last year when Manny Machado signed with them. So we'll see what happens. Should be very interesting, though, these sort of the second half of the season. All right, let's go to the gridiron now, the NFL gridiron. We'll start with Earl Thomas being released by the Ravens. It's sort of one of those things where, look, John Harbaugh, to his credit, said, look, I'm not saying nothing else about it. We're at the state with that our team since, and I'm just going to leave it there. And we see, Harbaugh is kind of like a pretty more the mellower Harbaugh brother, if you will, unlike his brother Jim. But, he's the kind of guy that will give you like a second or maybe a third chance. But I was telling a friend this over the weekend that it sounds like whatever happened with Earl Thomas was not the first time.
Yep.
I'm sure it had been building. I'm sure there were multiple incidents. So what are you guys thinking? Which team will can pick him up?
I'll start this one. It's not the first incident that Earl Thomas had. Even with Baltimore, I have to check it again, but I think he got into it with another player. I think at a point last year during the game on the sidelines, and for a guy that is not the Earl Thomas of old, obviously due to injuries and age, this was a sort of easy decision for the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, listen, he got burned, I believe, on a pivotal play in the playoffs last year in that game against the Tennessee Titans, and he had been burned on a few big plays last year in that defensive backfield. So I fully well expect the Baltimore Ravens to try to recoup that $10 million guaranteed salary, because it seems in the sort of last few years, later half of Earl Thomas's career, he's become more of a nuisance and hindrance than a help. We all know how he ended things, with the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know if you guys need a refresher course on that, but as he was being carried out on a stretcher, he decided to give the one finger salute to the fans and coaches of Seattle. So unceremonious ending there, and again another unceremonious ending here with Baltimore. So I don't know where he goes from here. I mean, he's become a headache. And again, he's not making the impact plays that he was making either 2, 3, 4 seasons ago. So I don't know where he ends up. I know before he signed with Baltimore, there was a rumor and rumblings about him maybe going to Dallas. I think that's been ramped up again. But if I'm Dallas, I wouldn't want that headache.
I'm with you, Jason. If you're Dallas, you don't want that headache now, because Earl Thomas wanted to be traded there before the start, I believe, last season, a couple of seasons ago, and it didn't happen. I'm not sure they have the room to bring him in now because money won't be. It's an issue with the Cowboys with their salary cap, but you're not going to break up the bank for aging veteran. He still has something left, but this is not the Legion of Boom years from 6-7 years ago. You know what team that's perfect for him? The Las Vegas Raiders. They take troublemakers all the time.
Well, I don't know, dude. I don't think do they have the room money wise though. I think
Right.
that's another.
I don't know.
Well, and I think there's another team that I think it was Ian Rappaport who said this, but for Mental Network, Ian Rappaport, he said San Francisco. But if you're Kyle Shanahan, do you really want to deal with that kind of headache?
No.
Wait, who's the DC there? I forgot. Is Ken Norton still there or who? Robert. Oh, it was Robert. Something I forgot his name, but he might be able to kind of keep him in check though. But
Maybe.
Who? Maybe. I mean, and I think they got the money, so who knows? But we'll see. As the Earl Thomas turns, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, for the next episode. Some interesting thing that happened over the weekend, and the Bears this involves the Bears too, and a few other teams. Apparently there were 77 false positives. This goes back to a lab in New Jersey. Apparently, I think like the Dolphins had like 13. I think the Bears had like 9, and the Bills had like about 11 or 12. And I think Josh Allen was one of those players that got the false positives. And what do you guys think? This has just been insane, like last 24 hours for these teams.
I think it comes down. Okay, it comes down to common sense. If you're the NFL, would you use this lab? I don't think so. And heaven forbid, and I do mean heaven forbid, if you test these players 2 days before the game or the day before a game, and that happened, those players wouldn't be available to play, which leads me to see who have been available to replace those players. So some of that you don't have a large group of players to choose from to fill those spots. And see, this is the thing that it goes back to college football again, which we'll get to in a minute. You have to be prepared for any situation that happens. And it seems like the NFL may have dodged a bullet here. Hopefully they'll change places where they get their lab test results. If they don't, this will keep happening again, and this will become a bigger problem if bigger stars like Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson or Ezekiel Elliott, they have a false positive test and they're not available to play that day, and it comes back it was a false positive. If you see bigger names on that list, then it's going to become a bigger issue. Hopefully the NFL can nip this in the bud, and because so far we haven't had an outbreak, thank goodness. Technically they're not in a bubble, but if this starts to become a problem and bigger names are on that list, then you'll have a bigger problem on your hands, and they cannot afford to do that. I'm talking about the NFL.
Yeah, this for me goes back to the point that we've been making about the NFL when dealing with this virus. There still, to me, doesn't seem to be any sort of concrete plans. And the fact that you had 77 false positive tests from a lab that you contracted is more than alarming to me, because like you said, Sid, what happens if you get some false positives a day before the game? Whether they're a false positive or not, you have the responsibility to not play the players. So what happens then? Because again, correct me if I'm wrong, I have not heard a single thing about what could happen for positives a day before the game. I've not heard anything about that. I've not heard not one sort of, step A, step B, step C process. So again, for me, this just shows the lack of preparedness from the NFL, and I'm not sure if it's an if situation more so than a when situation. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how they handle this thing.
And you're less than 3 weeks away from your season starting.
Yep.
Yeah, and this isn't a good look. And I think I saw somewhere where they are gonna have the players test on Thursday or Friday. That way, in case those positives are false, they can kind of like, okay, let's have another test and see if, if it comes on negative, then we're like, okay, maybe something was up. So hopefully they only have 3 weeks left till the season starts. So hopefully they can get this together here, because I think this is the last thing you need if you're the NFL. You don't need to have this sort of news coming out the pipe, because you're seeing what Chase Young's doing over at Washington camp. You're seeing everything else that's been happening. So Kyler Murray's looking really good. So it's sort of like one of those things where this is the last thing you want if you're the NFL. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm hoping that this lab, they don't use this particular lab, and this, I guess apparently they had a bad batch of test kits or something. I guess that's their what they're saying. So we'll see. But I just think that right now, if you're the NFL, you're looking at like, okay, let's not do this now. All right. And anything else NFL wise that got, anything you guys have seen in camp, or anything else you've seen like off the field that, tickles your fancy before we move on?
I will say this for the NFL preseason. I'm not a big fan of it. A little bit, just a little bit. I kind of missed it this year. Of course, we all know why, but this goes back to the Chicago Bears. I'm kind of sick of hearing about this quarterback battle, and this is why I missed the preseason for this year. We would have seen the fair competition handled on the field. Now, this is what I have to say about it, and hopefully this is the last time I say this. Mitchell Trubisky will be your starter, folks, whether you like it or not. We all know that Matt Nagy's job is on the line. GM Ryan Pace's job is on the line. And to get everything out of Mitchell Trubisky to see if he's the answer or not moving forward, you have to start him. Yes, they brought in Nick Foles. He may be better than Trubisky at this point in time. But to get everything out of Trubisky, he's going to be your starter week 1 in less than 3 weeks from Sunday at Detroit for your season opener. I know that there's a lack of storylines because of the pandemic situation and the lack of preseason games. There are no preseason games, but I'm kind of sick of hearing about this quarterback battle. Who looks good in practice? Who doesn't? Just get me to the season, please.
Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of right there with what you said. Obviously we don't have preseason games to sort of get, a handle on it on the field as far as this competition goes. But I'm kind of with you. I think Trubisky is going to be the starter at least week 1. We'll see how long it lasts. They've got a competing team, so if Matt Nagy, he knows what's good for him, he needs to have a short leash on Trubisky if he starts to struggle. Also, I want to give our thoughts and prayers and wish him good luck on his recovery to Ron Rivera. Obviously, a former Bear here in Chicago, now the coach for the team in Washington. Made public his cancer diagnosis. So, we just wish him the best and a speedy recovery. In this already challenging season, it's going to be even more challenging for him.
Yeah, and the good news is that if it gets to a point where he isn't being able to coach for the moment, they got Jack Del Rio there, who's a veteran NFL coach, defensive guy, so he'll keep things on track, and they're like their personalities are very similar, so it won't be no big change for them. So, of course, thoughts and prayers to Ron Rivera, and get well soon.
Yes, get well soon, Coach.
All right. Okay, college football. Now, the AP has released their preseason top 25 a couple of hours ago, and it's a little weird that they would have released the release list knowing that about half these teams will not be playing in the fall. I find it a little bit weird. I mean, Ohio State's number 2 behind Clemson, and that's not a big surprise that Clemson's number 1, but Ohio State's number 2, and they're not going to be playing. Like, let me shut up. I mean, I said on Twitter, let me just shut up, because I'm like, okay, y'all want to go ahead and say, like, okay, we're still going to play, and okay, whatever, but all right, I'll let you guys have the floor on this one. I'm done. Like, let me go. Good night, everybody. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, 2 of the Power 5 conferences aren't playing. So, I mean, that's, why do this? I just don't know why you do this. I mean, I don't have a reaction to it because of that. We're not going to see the competition on the field play out. So I don't know how you could even really come up with an accurate assessment of how these teams are unless they're – I don't know. I don't know how they came up with this thing. But it's just so weird because, again, a lot of these teams aren't going to be playing this year. So – what happens then? I mean, do you drop Ohio State out of the top 25 because they're not going to play? I mean, you drop Penn State out of the top 10 because they're not playing? I mean, we've gone in on the NCAA enough in the past few weeks, but this is just more fuel to the fire. I mean, it's sort of a. I mean, I don't even know what to call it. It's not really clownish, but I mean, it's not really accurate either.
This is a classic egg on their face, and they're trying to recover and make put on a good face, put on a happy face. But I'll be surprised if the season gets going. Like you mentioned, Jason, 2 of the top 5 power conferences are not going to play. How are you going to determine a national champion, let alone have fans in the stands, which some of these schools are still talking about? I don't know what else to say. You pretty much said it all, Jason. This is a classic egg on your face, and heaven forbid that an outbreak comes out through just one team. If it happens, you probably going to have to shut the whole season down. And you know me, I'm not Mr. Negative. I'm not trying to put fear into people's heads, but let's be realistic here. It'll be a miracle if these Power 3 conferences finish the season, let alone start it, and you have a top 25 poll. Trying to draw up interest, this makes no sense.
And let me say this before you get in, Lakeena.
Okay.
Shame. This is a personal thing for me, but maybe you guys can chime in on this. I don't know if you talked about it within on the last podcast, but to me, shame on the people that are protesting or have a problem with some of these conferences not wanting to play these games. Shame on you. We're talking about a pandemic. We're talking about the health and safety of young men and women's lives here. Mm-hmm. We all want to see football. I think we're all in agreement of that. But you're mad because a conference chooses to err on the side of safety rather than the side of uncertainty? I think some people need to really look in the mirror there.
Well, and I've said this before. I mean, you had like Ohio State parents and Iowa parents and Nebraska parents actually traveling to Chicago, where it's the headquarters is closed, by the way. Well, let's also remember that. I mean, it's closed. There's nobody there, so. And
we don't want your Rona.
Exactly, and and also even before all that, but I mean, okay, yeah, was there some miscommunication? Maybe there was, but here's the thing. I mean, the vote was there. They voted. These school presidents voted 14-2. And he was just a messenger. So for people to say that, well, it's Commissioner Warren's fault. Well, no, you need to talk to your president, your school presidents. And 2 of those school presidents are actually doctors who actually specialize in these kind of things. And I'm sure their former colleagues have probably told them, look, the data doesn't look good. Brian Halen, who is one of the top medical experts for the NCAA, said, look, we shouldn't be playing sports right now. So you're basically saying that, well, I want my kid to play. Well, I mean, look at that young man in Indiana that's having heart issues. There's a young man, I forgot the quarterback from Georgia Southern. I forgot his name, but he's also having heart. He said last week he's having heart issues. So do you really think you want to risk these athletes' lives? I don't think so. I would rather you do that than I'd rather be cautious and everyone said, well, they could do it in the bubble, they can do it in this. Well, I mean, look, North Carolina, what's another school? What's another school that
Michigan State?
Michigan State. Yep, they've decided to do remote learning. So, and other schools have done it too. So,
Notre Dame too.
Yeah, Notre Dame after 2 weeks. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't understand what more can you guys do. I mean, look, if y'all want to try and play, go ahead. I'll watch, but the competition's not going to be very good, and you probably are going to have some issues where you got some states are going to be a little more restrictive than others. You're going to bring it's just crazy.
Also, what's crazy too, and I don't know if we got into this, but Nebraska tried to go join one of these other Power Five conferences because they wanted to play. I heard Michael Wilbon, who's from ESPN, who's also on the board of trustees at Northwestern, his alma mater. He said, if you want to, regarding to Nebraska, if you want to leave, go ahead, just give us our $52 million back to the Big Ten. Of course, we all know it comes down to money, and Nebraska does not want to do that.
Oh no.
Let's keep that $52 million in our pockets.
Yeah. The fact that was even an outside thought is kind of idiotic in the first place.
I mean, look, I love that Nebraska program too, but when's the last time y'all have actually been good? Unfortunately, so I'm like, yeah. I mean, look, I mean, it's sort of like there seems to be some type. There should have been uniformity. We've been saying this for months since we started doing this. There should have been uniformity from the word go. Someone from the NCAA should have said, okay, you know what? Look, we're going to play this by ear. You know, we'll do a month, every 2 weeks. You know, we'll say, look, if it doesn't look good, then we'll cancel. And you're looking at what I don't know if you guys have heard, or if you guys were listening to or watching this have heard that, you know, basketball, the college hoops, at least they're being proactive. They're being like, look, okay, if we have to do a bubble, then we maybe do like 2 sites or whatever, have 32 teams in one end, another end, and you know, at least they're talking about doing stuff because they're already saying that they may not start till like January.
Yeah, but you know, you see plans being made, right? You see some sort of direction, or you know, you see some sort of direction, you know, from NCAA basketball, and again, it's been lacking from football, and it's really disappointing.
Yeah, from the outside looking in, it seems like we talked about this with the NFL too. It seems like from the outside, as an outsider looking in, you've been talking, being lackadaisical about this, and you couldn't come up with multiple plans and figuring out every possible situation. If this happened, we can do this. I know this is like a better term, a trial run because we haven't gone through this pandemic like anything like this before. So I get it from that standpoint. But as an outsider looking in, it seems like you weren't prepared. It's just like let's go on the wing in the prairie and hope that everything's okay. And those types of plans usually never work. He's just going in with blindfolders on. It just doesn't work.
Well, and you look at the high school aspect of it too. I mean, I know here in Illinois they're going to delay their football season, all their fall sports season until the spring. And you know, you're seeing other states like Pennsylvania. They've said that they're going to give it a go, and then like I think Georgia's, you know, their high schools are saying they're going to give it a go. I mean, look, you guys want a chance to go ahead, but if God forbid, I guess they're betting on like, okay, everyone's traveling regionally, so maybe it won't be so bad. But what if in one area it's a lot, you know, like I said a few minutes ago, what if one area is a little more restrictive than another area, which is more, you know, free flowing and loose with everything. So if God forbid someone catches something, I mean that's like, you might as well just forget it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better, you know, myself. I mean, again, I think we're looking at I don't want to put fear in anybody's heads either, you know, but I think we're looking at a win situation more so than an if situation when it comes to dealing with this virus. So we're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I mean, look, it'll be interesting. You know, again, we've been talking about it for weeks and months, you know, since we started doing this. And I mean, it's sort of like they're trying to like, okay, we'll just play it by ear and we'll just do it. But it just seems like I think they're just, look, if they pull it off, look, more power to them. But if they don't, look, we're like you guys have been saying, we're not doom and gloom. We're not one of those people, oh, you guys aren't going to play. But at the same time, though, you got to be realistic here. So we'll see. All right. Anything else? Got a few more minutes left.
Oh, yes. I need you guys to help me make a list.
Okay.
Of course, there was a talk about when should the NBA season start, the 2020-2021 season. Of course, Commissioner Adam Silver came out and said that December 1st was probably too soon. They want to give time to for a vaccine, and he wants fans in the stands, and why not? And that's how all these professional leagues and colleges make their money. I think it's safe to say that there won't be an 82-game season next year. I think they'll start between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Maybe, heaven forbid, and I do mean heaven forbid this pandemic gets any worse, they'll probably start on Martin Luther King Day, which is the third Monday in January. But I think you can start next season between Christmas and New Year's. You could probably use the 2012 model, which they had a 66-game season. Of course, we were coming off of a lockout then. Of course, in 1999, which was terrible, they fit in 50 games, and they're really trying to rush the season off of another lockout. But I think you can probably safely say you could probably do between 65, maybe 70 games. And the reason why the Olympics were postponed this year until next summer, and we all know that the NBA wants to be involved. And I've thought of the players that potentially can play next year, assuming you have a 65 or 70 game season, and your playoffs will end no later than June 20th, June 21st. I figure here's the potential players that could play in the Olympics next year, especially based off the success of the bubble and the young stars that could potentially play in Japan. Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, Karl Anthony Towns, possibly Anthony Davis. I know some people say LeBron James, but I think he's older now. He's been through it a couple of times.
I doubt it.
And you're correct, Jason. I don't think he's going to play. I said Anthony Davis. Steph Curry, he's still young enough. He can do it one more time. Klay Thompson of the Warriors. Also, I forgot who else was on that list. Maybe Kevin Durant, because he missed all of this past season, so he can give it a go one more time. I would say Kyrie, but I don't think he's going to do it. Plus, he's off in his own little world, so I don't think he's going to do it. So, if you guys can add any more names of young stars that could do it, I'm all for it, but I've counted up at least 5 or 6 names that could do it. Also, don't forget John Morant of Memphis. I can see him being on the Olympic team next summer.
With it being guard heavy, I think it'll probably reduce his chances a little bit. But I think you can put a lock in for Zion Williamson. He's too much of a box office, and he's too good to not be on this team. So
will he be in shape though? That's my question. Will he be in shape?
Right. Yeah. I think so. I think so. Again, we're coming.
If he does, then I'm with you.
Yeah. Let's see who else could probably be a part of that on the U.S. side. You said Kyrie.
You think Donovan? You think there's room for Donovan Mitchell in there somewhere?
Yeah. It's guard heavy, man.
That's why I was having to say his name. Yeah.
I think you still got to put his name in there. You got to have James Harden on that team, I think. But
Kawhi? Maybe Kawhi, maybe? You can play both the two guards.
I'm iffy on Kawhi.
Yeah, I'm iffy only because of the stage of his career. He's kind of, I think he's still in peak, but he's kind of coming on the other side of his peak a little bit. I think he's still there though. So, but I think it would probably just depend on how he feels. He's kind of a mercurial figure when it comes to the off season. So we'll see. But if he wants to play, I'm sure he'll have a spot.
I just thought of another name. I know it's guard heavy, but I'm assuming that a couple of these people may not be interested. But how about Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks?
Yeah.
I think he'd be interested. I think he'd be interested in playing. I think for the Olympics.
Absolutely.
I think he would like that.
Yeah, agree.
Maybe Devin Booker, maybe. But like you said,
I mentioned him. Yeah.
It's guard heavy though, like you said, Jason. So there may not be no room for him. But does Zach LaVine get consideration? You think?
I think he does if most of your stars are not interested. He'll be in that second tier, third tier group. His name did pop in my head, but everybody and their mama, as the kids would say, I had to back out. That's the only way he'll get consideration.
Yeah. He'll definitely, I would assume, get the call to the camp. I would assume he'll definitely get the invite call, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's about okay. Well, Jamal Murray is Canadian, so you gotta think he'll
Right.
probably want to play for Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's about it. Maybe Jason Tatum, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if he, I would almost put him as a lock. I mean, if he can play the forward, so I would kind of almost put him as a lock.
I think he was part of the last. Yeah, I think it was part of the last USA team that went overseas for that. I forgot that tournament. It wasn't for the Olympics, but
It was FIBA.
it was him, Jaylen Brown, and some of the other guys too. So I think Kyle Kuzma was part of that group too. You guys know what I'm talking about from a couple of years ago. I agree with you, Jason, that Jason Tatum will probably be a lock.
I'm trying to think. Wait, do you think Kyle Lowry gets a shot? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think he'll get the invite. I think
right.
All these guys will definitely.
And he's older now too.
Right. But again, I mean, there's just so many guards. There's so many guards.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of big men, so they're probably going to need like maybe if AD is interested, maybe have him play like to be in more of the center position. We'll see, but yeah, look, I mean, it's a good problem to have in the U.S. I mean, if the schedule kind of like coincides with everything else, I'm sure they're going to want to like end the season like as early as possible to get those guys, ready and give them enough rest to sort of get them ready for the Olympics. So we'll see. I mean, do you think Carmelo will probably want to? I'm sure he's going to want to try and do it again. He's kind of like the leader, I guess.
Remember, before this pandemic, USA Basketball told him, "Well, we don't need you."
Yeah.
Of course, this is before he got picked up by Portland, but he'll probably be on that Zach LaVine list. Like, if we need you, because most of the big time stars don't want to participate, we'll give you a call. But for right now, no.
Yeah,
but most of your big guys are foreign players, so
yeah,
we kind of have a problem here in the U.S. as far as a lack of big men and swing guys outside of Anthony Davis.
That's why I said maybe Zion will get the invite.
Yep.
Probably, yeah, all because of it, yeah.
Because of that, so that's why. That's just my. I don't know. I know Jason feels this way too, but that's just me. But yeah, I think that's why he'll probably get the invite because they don't have the big men and all Jokic and Doncic and those guys, they all play for their home country, so that's not good. That's not going to work. So, all right, real quick before we wrap up here, congratulations to Bayern Munich who won their 8th Champions League title. They're the first to go undefeated from start to finish, and that's crazy that they were able to do that. With everything, they had to stop for like 3 months, and they came back and. Couldn't get the big game to win the Bundesliga title, but look, I mean, Lewandowski, I mean, he is one of the top players in the world soccer wise, so he's been great. Alphonso Davies, if you haven't heard his story, I mean, was born in Ghana, his family immigrated to Canada, there was a lot of buzz about him, when he started playing for the junior Canadian national team, ended up going to Bayern Munich. In his first year, they end up winning one of the top titles in Europe. So congrats to them, and they're totally deserving, totally worthy of the champions.
Great, congratulations.
Also, Dustin Johnson, what performance by him at the Northern Trust, 30 under.
I thought that was a misprint when I saw it. I thought, I've never seen a golf score that low. I've never.
Well, look, he shot a 60. Which wasn't even like the top score. So somebody else scored a 59, but he was able to kind of dominate, over the weekend and was able to win. I think this is the second or third Northern Trust Open title. So, I mean, and also Tiger didn't have a good round, but he said he misses the fans being in the gallery. So he sort of, it's kind of weird coming from him, but he said he misses the fans.
Hey, we're all missing the fans here. I mean, it's part of it's part of why we like it.
All right. Any other closing thoughts?
Just looking forward to the NBA playoffs as the first round action is starting to wind down. We're getting into the second round. The Stanley Cup playoffs. Congratulations to the Vancouver Canucks. I think Rachel Kopchak, our guest from the last podcast last week, I think she predicted it if memory serves. Vancouver took out the St. Louis Blues, so you'll have a new champion in the NHL this year. I know the second round started off on Saturday. I believe Dallas beat Colorado in Game 1. Of course, Boston and Tampa. I know Tampa, I think, lost Game 1, but we'll see if this is the year for them to capture a cup. So we all know that things can get crazy in a normal year in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but I think things could get a little bit crazier now that we're into the second round.
She also said that Islanders-Flyers series should be really good. That'll be very entertaining. That's a lot of orange. That's a lot of orange. So we'll see which team in orange will win it. That Colorado. I think Dallas will do enough to kind of get back. Well, Colorado, I should say, but they're because I think that team's that's a very speedy team. So we'll see what happens. And Vegas just annihilated the Canucks couple of nights back, beating them 5-0, but we'll see. I mean, we're in the semifinals, so should be fun. Jason, you got anything to add?
No, I'm just looking forward to the continuation of playoff basketball. Looks like Orlando and Milwaukee are in a tight one at this point in time. We'll see who's able to pull away and win that. And the Cubs, they've got the Tigers, so hopefully they can regain some confidence after kind of taking a bit of a beating over the weekend. So we'll see what they're able to do there. Again, they've got Detroit. Again, and the Sox are looking to stay hot. So, looking forward to more sports over the weekend.
Yeah, hopefully the Sox, you got a light. Yeah, hopefully the Sox, as I mentioned before earlier in this segment, you have a light schedule this week. 2 off days this week in between the mini 2-game series against Pittsburgh here in Chicago before you take on Kansas City this upcoming weekend, before the big series on the road in Minnesota next week. So you have a chance to establish it in yourself again. The 7-game winning streak was snapped. This is a chance to get yourself back on track. And if you're a serious playoff team, you have to take care of business right now. Yeah,
both teams got light schedules this week, so they should be able to kind of, like I said earlier, they should be able to kind of get back into the Cubs should be able to get back into the groove, and I think the White Sox should be able to get back into the groove because I think both teams, are right there in the cusp of making the playoffs, I think. All right, you follow me at Keenan McGee on Twitter, at Keenan_McGee on the Instagram.
You can follow yours truly.
@2reason_ on the Twitter, and you can always follow the show's Twitter handle at 2NDCSCHI. Also, sometime this week, look for a new episode of The Go Route with me and our good friend Derek Tate of the Fantasy Focus crew. Probably going to start to get into some divisional previews here, and hopefully we'll be getting into that next week too here on Second City.
Yeah.
You can follow yours truly, SidKid80, on Twitter and Instagram at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You can read all of my articles at WeAreRiggerRadio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And you can download this podcast along with our other fabulous programming from We Are Rigger Radio, wherever you download your podcast. And we also are on iHeartRadio. Download the iHeartRadio app. Just type in WARR on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. You can access our fabulous programming, including Second City Sports.
And also, we're also on YouTube as well. So you can look up WARR on Anchor. All of our previous episodes, we've interviewed some great people, over the months since we started doing this. So check it out and tell your friends to subscribe.
Put on a happy face. See our lovely face.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you guys stay cool out there. It's gonna be hot all this week in the 90s, and also our hanging there to our good friends in the Gulf Coast. We got not one but 2 tropical storms that are heading in that direction. So if you got relatives in that area, tell them to get out of the storm or come up north, and hope they can get out of the eyes of that storm because they don't look too bad, but you want to get away of the path.
Oh, Lakeena, real quick, I want to ask Jason, 45 seconds or less, what did you think about the Tom Brennaman situation? Did Fox Sports do the right thing here?
Yes, they did. Real simple. Tom Brennaman, I mean, listen, I know you guys are around, we're all around the same age, so we all have a history with Tom Brennaman, obviously doing Cubs games here in Chicago as well. But he's got to be better than that. He's been in this business way too long. He's got to be better than that. They did the right thing, in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, and on that note, for Jason and Sid, I'm Lakeena. This has been Second C Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
See you next time. Holla!